New opening.
It's Material Issues with David Bash and Mark Hershberger. Featuring the Winsome Loosesome Orchestra. Introducing the Rolf Sandstorm Dancers. It's episode number 94 with a very special guest appearance by Brian Ray of the Bayonets and Paul McCartney's band. Thanks for joining us today on Material Issues.
And there you have it. Nice. Episode number 94 of Material Issues is underway. I'm Mark Hershberger of Pop Detective Records. I'm over here in South Jersey on the East Coast, where it's a little chillier today, but all the way from the West Coast, joining me this afternoon, Mr. David Bash of the International Pop Overthrow Festival. David, good afternoon, early evening for me. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Good afternoon, Mark. I'm doing okay. Yeah, I mean, we started late, and it's really on me because we had a little miscommunication. Hi, Andy.
Checking
I
in
guess
from
I was supposed to email the details to Brian, and instead I sent them via Facebook. So, fortunately, he figured it out, albeit late. But again, it was apparently on me. So I apologize to everybody.
It's one demerit.
That. But hey, you know, that's how we roll on Material Issues. Everything is sort of off the cuff anyway, so why not?
It's all good.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting week here. I sent out the IPO Liverpool schedule to all the bands a few days ago. It's not posted yet because there are always going to be a few changes. I'm still having to sort out some of those changes, but it should be posted, I don't know, maybe at the end of the week or the beginning of next week. And May 28th through June 4th at the Cavern Club.
Wonderful.
Year number 19.
Wow.
I know, insane, right?
It really is crazy. And, I just have such wonderful memories of a couple times that I've been over there to the Cavern with IPO. And it's just if you can get there, I recommend everybody getting there. It's a great, great time.
It really is a great time. In Liverpool, of course, is the mecca of the Beatles. And if you're a Beatles fan, there's so many things to do, so many tours, so many sites.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite remarkable. Watch check. I haven't done this for a while, but I got something new, something I've been waiting to get for a long time. This is the Omega Swatch Mission to Saturn. It's one of 11 varieties that riff off the original Omega Moonwatch, the one that astronauts actually, thank you, Andy, good. Astronauts actually wore to the moon. So
nice.
This is a riff of that, and there's a whole backstory to it, which is kind of amazing, actually. But I won't get into that now. Maybe I'll post about it on Facebook. But all I can say is I've been waiting over a year to get one, and thank God I finally did.
I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into it now. Speaking of Liverpool, obviously our next guest has some association with that because he's long been Paul McCartney's guitar player, occasional bass player. And that's what he's primarily known for. And, obviously you could expect that. But he's done a lot of other stuff.
Sure has. Yeah.
We'll talk about some stuff you might not expect. But he's impressive enough to be able to have done these things. And most recently, he's got his band, the Bayonets, back active, and they've got a new album coming out, and it's really fun stuff.
Yeah, and the new single, Argentina, is fantastic. Yeah,
he's a really good guy. I'll always be thankful for the time that he played International Pop Overthrow LA. It was a great set, and he's obviously an amazing musician. So we're very honored to have him. Would you please give a huge Material Issues welcome to Mr. Brian Ray?
And there he is.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Mark. Hey, David. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing wonderful.
Thank you very much. Yeah, feeling good.
Yeah, feeling good, looking good. Brian, you look fantastic. David and I were talking pre-show that we're all kind of in the same age range, let's say, and you take very good care of yourself. And when
Unlike us.
well, I'm just saying, it's just unlike us. But no, you kind of have to. You play long sets in Mr. McCartney's band, and that's one thing that some people don't really realize is that you've got to be in good shape to pull off those kind of tours and playing like that. So you look fantastic, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. I mean, I just started with a new trainer, so I'm doing some fitness training. Just to keep the bod happy and active, keep the blood flowing, and do our best. We just do our best to stay vital.
Well, there's one little. We like to talk about some of the off-center questions in material issues, but when you're on the road and you're playing, long concerts, what physically bothers you the most? What is it? Is it ever your back? Is it your knees? Is it something? Because I look at what Springsteen's doing and the length of shows he plays and the physicality that goes on there. It's tough for a 24-year-old.
Yeah, right. It's a good question. Let's have a podcast on the medical issues of musicians. Actually, it's a good question because my favorite guitar is an old 1957 gold top Les Paul with humbuckings, and it is not light. It is probably near 9 pounds.
Yeah.
But it's my baby. That's my number one. And I think the thing that, if anything, gets to you is just the shoulder, your neck, all of this stuff. That's the worst of it. Back when I was running around the stage like a crazy person and jumping in the air and all that good stuff, I think my knees used to give me some trouble, but I'm not quite that crazy anymore. I mellowed out a little bit. Just a little bit of neck stuff, but yeah.
And how about Abe? I mean, not to give away secrets, but what is Abe's age range? Because you look at a drummer like that working so hard. I'm not sure what his age is right now. I could figure it out if I stopped to do some math, but I didn't know there was going to be any math on today's. Yeah, there's going to have to be math on today's show.
Exam, yeah.
I'm just very, very impressed with how hard he works for that length of period of time.
No doubt about it. And we're doing close to 3-hour shows. Right. Abe is, takes good care of himself. And it's a very physical job. He's obviously got the most physical job of any of us.
But Brian, I think the most pertinent question is, you're a spring chicken compared to your main man. How in the world is an 80-year-old man able to reach in and just find the fortitude to be able to do these shows and not just sit in a rocking chair and playing an acoustic? How in the world, what do you think? How is he able to do it?
He's clearly from another planet. I checked and there's no navel here. It's just smooth. So I'm pretty sure he's
an alien.
Another planet. But that's a really good example of living well. The guy has been, a vegetarian for so many years, for 5 decades now or more. And he goes to the gym. He goes to the gym on a show day, just like I do. I meet him down there almost every time I go to the gym. He's doing it too. And he has his routine that helps keep him ready to go. And then, he's got so many other things to take care of as well. He's the lead singer, and obviously he was given a gift that's beyond what most people are given. So maintaining that and doing his routines, that's a part of his warm up that I don't know about, but I've heard things down the hall. I can hear him doing this and that, but
and the mental side of it all too. Besides the physical side, he's got to be the face of his promo and talking to everybody and promo and everything. it's an all-encompassing thing, which is it's amazing for somebody at his age can be just so vibrant and still and do it all the time, every day.
I think it comes down to that he loves it.
Loves it. Yeah.
He's a guy who certainly doesn't need it, but he loves it. And if you love something, you're more likely to do a good job of it. If your job is one that you like, you're probably going to be better at it than if you had a job you didn't like.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
He loves being Paul. He's good at being Paul, and more power to him.
And I'm going to assume that you love being Brian.
I'm doing pretty okay with being Brian. There was times in my youth where I was like, "What the fuck?" Excuse my French.
That's fine.
What am I going to do? Oh my God, I have this crazy dream. How is it going to work out? Oh my God, I'm between tours. And somehow, one thing led to another, and that led me to Paul McCartney. Scary years here and there, scary months, but I'm doing pretty good. And Paul's a huge part of why my life is, pretty fun, to be honest with you.
Let's move back to your youth, because one thing I didn't realize until I started reading more about you is that your sister was Jean from Jim and Jean, which is an act that I know, and who I have the People World album in my collection.
Oh my God.
I don't know. The first time I actually heard that song, by the way, was by a German band called the Lords. I initially thought it was their song, but it's obviously your sister's. And how much of an influence was she on your musical taste, on your desire to become a musician?
Oh, it was really everything. But thanks for the question, David. It's like my sister Jean, my late sister Jean, was 15 years my elder and lived with my family for just about 1 year. She was in high school and I was a toddler. I was 3, and she would take me over to her girlfriend's house and they would play Elvis and Little Richard and Rick Nelson and all of these great early rock and roll records. It was the time, this is quite a while ago. And I was just like looking at these women, these young women, like, oh my God, they're freaking out over this music and over that picture. I'm going to do that.
Wow.
I was 3 years old and I was thinking about, how do I please the ladies? Clearly, this is the way to make women happy. You have to sing and move your hips and, stuff like that. So it was clear to me that I wanted to do that. But more than that, Jean was an amazing singer and songwriter in her own right, and was part of, as you said, Jim and Jean. And they did about 4 folk rock albums, People World being the last of them that you mentioned. But I mean, she had these great songs. She was very close to all of the scenesters there in the Village back in the day, like Fred Neil and Phil Oakes and all of the performers of the time. And they were all playing in the clubs down there. And I got to go see them quite a bit when I got a little bit older, about 8 years old, and I saw a couple of shows, and they had a huge impact on me. I was just a little kid. Well, actually, before that, 6 years old, 7 years old, I went to some folk clubs and saw them playing as just a little kid. And then, I got to meet people like Albert King because I was hanging out with her, and I was like, oh my God, Albert King is giant. And I started to play with her. Jim and Jean both encouraged me a lot to play music, but it was their own passion for music that was the most influential thing. Like, I could feel their passion. They cared about societal issues and culture and politics. And they were in that, that early 60s folk scene, and it really rubbed off on me, social responsibility, stuff like that. It really meant a lot to me. Yeah. And then she had me do my very first ever club show was with her at the Troubadour
Wow.
When I was like 14 years old, doing a hoot night there with her, and I was like so scared, but so overwhelmed. And I remember Bonzo Dog Band were playing that night, and they befriended me, and they were fond of me, and we saw the Dillards, and it was just like it was the scene, man. I was in the scene, and I was just a little kid, Really,
that started the ball rolling. Really, that just that's huge. Yeah, and she had a connection with Neil Young, correct?
That's right. Yeah, they were quite close. They were seeing each other for a period of time, and he wrote as many as 3 of his big songs about her, for her.
Wow. No kidding.
Cinnamon Girl is about Jean Ray.
Wow.
Cowgirl in the Sand is about Jean Ray at her aunt's house, or her mom's house, my aunt's house on the beach at Malibu, Cowgirl in the Sand. And Helpless was, I heard, also partially about her. But I think that Neil also has been clearer in the past that he takes bits from different relationships, and sometimes it's a bit of a gumbo. But anyway, yeah, that's the truth.
And your cover of Cinnamon Girl was related to that whole thing. That's kind of, I had to dig into that a little bit and see where that came from. So I get it.
It's also just a great song. I mean, I loved that song way before I knew it that it was about my sister. And when I found that out, it was just like, okay, well, maybe one day I'll do this song, and then I did.
Yeah. And you, if I've read this correctly, were you actually part of Bobby Boris Pickett's band for a while?
I was, yeah. My first professional.
How in the world did that happen?
I know, wild, right? How did that happen? It could have been a connection through my sister Jean, I think, and through Cloris Leachman, the actress.
Wow.
Cloris's son, Brian, was my partner in crime when I was in junior high. His name is spelled with a Y. I never held that against him, but it was spelled incorrectly forever. So one way or another, Bobby Boris Pickett was dating Cloris Leachman. She was now single, and they were dating. We were rehearsing up at Brian Cloris's home studio in the garage, and my sister was a part of that too. So Jean Ray was in the Crypt Kicker 5 along with me, and basically my high school band was the band, and we wore ghoul makeup, and we were the Crypt Kicker 5, and we played Six Flags over Texas and other amusement parks, and it was seasonal, but we were out for a good month together, and it was a blast, a real blast. Bobby Boris Pickett couldn't have been a nicer sort of first boss for me. And it was soon after playing with Bobby Boris Pickett. In fact, it was because I was playing with Bobby Boris Pickett that I met Phil Kaufman, the famous, infamous road mangler. Anyway, that's a long story that I won't bore you with, but it's a crazy story. And then Phil, well, I'll tell you a little bit. You ready for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Bobby Boris Pickett says we're playing at a daytime fundraiser. And I went, okay, cool. A charitable thing. That's great. We go out to the valley, pull up into this ranch house out on Chandler in North Hollywood area. And there's this crazy house set way back, an old sort of craftsman with a big porch like they used to have. And there are 2 American Eagles gas signs, one on each side of the door, all this crazy neon, a hearse in the front yard. And I went, what the hell are we getting ourselves into here today? So we come in, we set up in the backyard, and there's 4 stages set up in the backyard and a couple of card tables to sell merch and stuff like that. And I meet this old rascal, not so old at the time, Phil Kaufman. And well, what I learned we were doing was we were paying a fundraiser to pay his legal bills for having gotten arrested for grand theft, more like Graham theft, because he stole Graham Parsons' coffin with Graham in it.
Oh.
And it's a long ass crazy story, but that day, there I am doing the Monster Mash, dressed like a ghoul in the Crypt Kicker 5 for an actual Crypt Kicker. It's kind of weird. But somehow Phil Kaufman just kind of took to me. I think he lost his best friend. Graham Parsons had gone, and theirs was a deep, deep friendship and love. And they had a vow. Whoever goes first, we're going out to Joshua Tree. The other one.
Okay.
And that's what Phil made good on a vow, a friendship vow. Now, I think Graham's family saw it a very different way, and
Sure.
I'll stay out of that part of it. Nonetheless, I met Phil Kaufman that day, and he kind of took to me. And it was a few months later, I had gotten another gig, and we were rehearsing in his place with a guy from Cleveland. And then not long after that, Phil says, "Hey, I'm going up to Etta James's house tomorrow to do a rehearsal, and the guitar player can't make it. So come along with me. Who knows? Maybe you can play." And I went, "Oh my God, yeah, are you kidding me?" He had taken me to see Etta James at the Troubadour. There's the Troubadour again.
Yeah.
1973, and it blew my mind. I mean, it was like this insane show. And anyway, so I did get in the back of his van with my guitar the next day. We went up there, and there's Etta James, who I had met once before at the Troubadour. And we jammed, and there I was, being way too young to be in that band, and really a greenhorn. I felt pretty new at this stuff, just out of high school. And she said to Phil, "I like that little white kid." And asked if I would be available to play with her in Long Beach the next day. And I did, and that led to 15 years with Etta. And Phil was the road manager.
I'm still having a hard time getting over Cloris Leachman getting a jolt from Bobby's electrode, but
yeah, right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So you were going to play the next day with Etta James.
Yeah.
How do you handle something like? I mean, were you that well versed in everything that she did?
No, not at all. They gave me a handful of charts, and the rest was going to be blues and jamming, because she didn't have her full, rehearsed band with her. And since I was going to be brand new, they gave me some charts. I looked over the charts, and I knew a little bit about reading charts, not much.
Right.
I'm kind of self-taught, but I just dug in, and because I was passionate about it, I wanted to be with her. And I was young. I was still living at home. So I didn't have a big overhead. And I made the wise decision to tell Etta James, "I don't care if I get paid or not. I just want to play with you." And she said, "You're my guy."
Yeah.
And that sort of blind, faith led to us bonding in tremendous ways. We were very, very close for a lot of years. Yeah.
I mean,
we saw, my wife and I saw Etta James at a blues festival in Dana Point. I want to say this probably would have been right before you joined Paul. Would you have been in her band at that point?
No. My last shows with her were around 1988, 89. So long before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what a way to come out of the gates, though. I mean, getting in with Etta James. I mean, that's just that for a young guitarist who it's just mind blowing. That blows my, and the fact that you had basically a day to prepare to start off, to me is that also just blows me away. That's quite something. Which speaks a lot about your abilities, and you throw trial by fire, get in there, do it, and then that just gives you the confidence to many years later, hop on the first song with Paul McCartney in 2002, the Super Bowl pregame, and and go from there. So everything ties in. Every little experience sets you up for something else. And amazing story.
I would say that's true. It all starts from Bobby Boris Pickett, and then Etta, and really from Phil Kaufman, who I adore, who's just great. But, I was just a good fit for Etta because I loved what she loved. Funny enough, she didn't just love American blues guitar players. She loved the British invasion blues guitar players who were informed by the American blues guitar players. So she loved Peter Green. She loved Jeff Beck. And I went, oh my God, I have really, struck a jackpot here. So she liked what I was doing. I had a lot of passion, a lot of desire. So it was a good fit.
But in the meantime, you're also working with a whole bunch of other artists, right?
Yeah.
In the 70s and 80s.
Well, she was nice enough to let me do kind of almost anything if it worked around her schedule. I wasn't canceling shows to play with other people with her. I mean, there was a few times where I was going to be gone and she had a backup guitar player in the wings, but I would always, favor her. But I played with a number of other people, a couple of different Warner Brothers acts. And Etta was on Warner Brothers as well.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah.
Favorite Etta James track to play?
Oh, geez. There's some good ones out there. I would say there's an album that's kind of hard to find called Etta is Better Than Ever. And
I'm finding it now.
That's my title. And there's a song on there called WOMAN, Woman. And I co-wrote that and wrote the riff and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
That's a good one to listen to, or she's just being her usual badass self. That's a good one. It's the first recording we ever did together.
Oh, wow. Okay. Etta is better than, okay. I'm
going to Discogs right away.
I love
so
it.
was it in the 70s where you started to write songs as well?
Well, I'd always been thinking of myself as a songwriter. I mean, but to be honest with you, even in the 60s, I was writing songs, but what I was really doing is stealing songs and then saying them they were mine. What I would do is I would take like a Bob Dylan song or a Phil Oakes song, and I would rewrite the lyrics and play it and just say, I just wrote this song. And of course, to nobody was listening. But as soon as I could, I started recording as well. Like I had a little 2-track, and I would record on each track and play it together. And, then a 4-track. And then my buddy Brian England had a 4-track TAC and, a bunch of mics. And we started really getting into it. And I just loved the recording process. It always interested me. I've always been fascinated with records, with a recording's ability to grab your attention and make you addicted to it. I just thought that's the coolest thing in the world. Like, make people have to listen again. That's like so cool. It's just the best,
You're not the only one who did that rewriting. I mean, let's talk to Brian Wilson and George Harrison as well. I'm kidding, of course.
And they turned out okay.
Yeah,
they turned out all right.
Fortunately, you didn't have to spend all your youth in court because nobody was hearing those songs.
I saved that for later. No, I'm kidding. I haven't been in court a lot, so that's good.
Good.
Are you a collector, Brian, of music, of albums? What? I know you're a collector of some incredible guitars. I've watched countless videos of your guitar collection, which is also mind-boggling. The things that you've been able to find, but
thanks.
Just incredible guitars. But music-wise, are you a music collector?
Well, I mean, it. Funny enough, I still have my sister Jean's 45s. It's a stack of 45s like this big. So I have the teddy bears. To know him is to love him. Mm-hmm. I have like all of Rick Nelson's earliest stuff, the first couple of Beach Boys singles, Elvis singles. I have Heartbreak Hotel, Jailhouse Rock, Big Hunk of Love, King Creole. I have, all of her stuff. Those were all purchased by her in the 50s. So I haven't seen those in a long while, but they're in a storage garage of mine. And I have a fair amount of LPs, not a huge amount, but more like guitars and a couple cars. I like mid-century American stuff.
Cars
nice.
and guitars, yeah.
Well, I want to hear more about the cars. What do you have?
Oh, I have a few that I'm going to be selling. But anyway, I have. Let me see. My pride and joy is a 1958 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham, which is a very rare car that they only made 704 of.
Wow.
And it's just like Nerdsville. It's such a nerdy thing. It's like post-war Americana at its most, outrageously optimistic and opulent, and it had a stainless steel roof, suicide doors, and a magnetized bar that would fold out from the glove box with 6 magnetized shot glasses on it. What could go wrong? Yes. So I had to have one of those. And I always wanted one of those ever since I first saw it in about 1980, but they were always out of reach. And then I finally nabbed one about 9 years ago, something like that.
Nice. I have a story. I wonder if this was the car. I was lucky enough to have lunch with Phil Spector one day. Not just him, but a bunch of people, and where he was the center of the whole thing. It was actually about a week before he got sentenced. And we didn't talk much music because all he wanted to do was talk about the trial. But he finally did bring something up. He said as a young man starting out, his manager took him to have lunch with Fats Domino. And as they're having lunch, Fats tells them, "I just bought me 4 Cadillacs." And the manager says, "Why 4, Fats? 1 for each direction." I'm wondering if that was the Cadillac one of the Cadillacs he bought.
One for each direction.
Boy, we loved him.
Yeah,
is there a holy grail of a guitar that you'd love to own that it's always in the back of your mind that you look for, or
well,
you've got pretty much, I think, everything that's very cool that you've been looking for as far as
I have a number of guitars. The holy good grail of guitars for me is the first one I ever had that I played back in Bobby Boris and Bobby Boris Pickett's band. It's a 1957 gold top Les Paul.
Gold top, yeah.
And I still have that. I avoided selling it, even though I was running out of money in the 90s. I was like, what do I do now? What's for my next trick?
Yeah.
And then I guess, the other big holy grail is a 1959 Sunburst Les Paul. That one year is for some reason the grail, because Peter Green, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Mick Taylor, Keith Richards, Paul McCartney, all these guys all had this one year. Well, Paul's is in 1960, but that was the one to have. And that's kind of a grail guitar.
Here's a question that just came in for you, Brian. It says, are you able to walk the streets freely after a McCartney show, or are the fans so in-depth that you get spotted and approached?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, it depends where we are. In Japan, we have to sneak out of the hotel. We have to be escorted out because he has hundreds of fans outside, and by now they all know us as well. So it is tricky for us. And I have no problem, standing and talking to a fan or two at all. But when it's a lot of them, it kind of gets scary a little bit, and then you can't go anywhere because you get kind of locked in. But it's a great problem to have. I have no complaints at all. And obviously, because of Paul, any recognition I get is likely from Paul McCartney. So, bless him. But I would say it would be much harder to be Paul because he really has to think about that stuff,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. But he does walk. I mean, the paparazzi are always getting pictures of him walking around with his wife somewhere in public. So he still does it.
Yeah, I know when he's over here playing Philadelphia, he gets his haircut in Mount Holly at a barber that he knows, and people have actually been there and walked in when he's walked in and gotten his haircut, which is pretty crazy if you were sitting in the chair next to him.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Paulina wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Palm Springs community for the restoration help on the Plaza Theater. That's a nice post. Yeah.
My pleasure, Paulina. Thank you very much for that little comment. It's been a pleasure. That work continues. I'm a proud member of the Save the Plaza Theater Foundation, the Palm Springs Plaza Theater Foundation. And the work continues. We did a great big fundraiser, and we raised nearly $500,000 there in one night. And but the foundation itself has raised a good deal more than that. We'll start restoration very soon on a beautiful 1930s theater right in the center of Palm Springs. It will be a world-class small theater venue for another 100 years due to
What's the history behind the plaza? Why?
It opened. It was one of the very first commercial buildings, part of a plaza. There goes the name Plaza, like one of those early drive-in and park shopping plazas, with a little island in the center and two buildings with restaurants and rooms you could rent. And attached to it was the Plaza Theater. So it was a whole big thing that they built in 1936. A woman built it, not herself. She had help. But she commissioned it, and she was invited to Palm Springs by another woman. So it's a great, here on International Women's Day,
exactly.
It's a good thing to talk about. That the Plaza Theater happened because of the will of two brave, strong women, and wow. The one who commissioned the building was the National Cash Register, NCR heiress. And it cost $2 million back then, which in 1936 was a lot of money,
Wow.
Right after a depression, And anyway, it's beautiful. It's what they call it atmospheric. You walk into the theater after the lobby, and it's a slope floor, 800-seater with a balcony, and it transforms you into a little Mexican courtyard, and you're looking at a infinite ceiling with little starry twinkling lights, and the sides are like balconies and windows of a little village.
Oh, and wow.
Not paintings of it, just it's really set into the walls, and it's quite a vibe in there. I mean, it's going to be really something when it's all done.
So it'll be restored as a performance venue.
Performance, film festivals, films, comedy, small theater, spelling bees, and rock and roll.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let me get back to your songwriting a bit. I know, obviously, you were a big fan of Smokey Robinson, and you ended up co-writing a song for him that was pretty big.
Yeah. That's a wild story. I had been working for a couple of years with a guy named Steve Legasic. We became fast friends, and we wrote songs together like we were getting paid for it when we weren't yet. And that was about 1984. We were at it for a couple of years. Then I get a phone call that some friends of mine are going to be producing an album on Smokey Robinson. And my immediate thought was, hey, we'd like to write a song for him. And they were like, yeah, thanks, Brian. But, Smokey is pretty good. And he's got a few songs. He doesn't really need any other songs. And I went, And I turned to my friend, Steve Legasic, and he said the most genius thing. He said, let's do it anyway. And I went, wow, you're a genius. And we started working on a song. I had a title rolling around in my head, One Heartbeat, take it one heartbeat at a time,
right?
In a new love relationship. And we started in on it, and, my idea was to sort of like Tracks of My Tears kind of vibe, kind of a slow jam, romantic thing. And we wrote it in about a week's time, just getting it all together. Demo was done within a week or two, and we had it on cassette because that's what you listened to back then.
Yep.
And I hand wrote on it One Heartbeat and, Ray Legasic at the bottom. And we were going to go to Steve Legasic's parents' cabin up in Lake Isabella near the Sierras. And on the way out of town, we brought the CD. No, it wasn't even a CD. The cassette to Peter Bonetta and Rick Chudikoff, who were producing this album,
right.
And we just dropped it off for them. And they had told us not to. We did it anyway. So we go to the Kern River, and we get back in town, and on our voicemail machines, there were no cell phones back then, is a message from Rick and Peter, both on the phone, saying, "Hey, Brian, we loved your song. We played it for Smokey. He loves your song. We're going to cut it Thursday. Bring all your stuff. We're going to do it just like your demo."
Wow.
And, we cut it at Conway Studios, 32-track digital, and great musicians. And we built the track just like we built the demo. And that's the version.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean,
of course, teaches you never take no for an answer, at least not in the musician realm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. I mean, you keep throwing darts, and sometimes you hit the bullseye. Phone call comes in. It's like, hello. Yeah.
And that's also says a lot about partnership. Like of my own power, I would have probably just and I did say, oh well, we're not going to be doing that. And Steve was like, let's do it anyway. So that was pretty cool.
No,
I don't know if you remember this, Brian, but when you played my festival, International Pop Overthrow, with your band at Fay Dodo, you did a cover of Tears of a Clown. And so when I saw that you had written One Heartbeat, I thought, well, maybe there's a connection there. You your love for Smokey just continued.
Yeah, that's it. I always loved Tears of a Clown. In fact, I was in a band in the 70s with a guy named Reggie Knighton.
Oh, yeah.
And it was produced, the album that I did with him was produced by Roy Thomas Baker of Queen, Cars, and Journey fame. And we had a version of Tears of a Clown, and that was Reggie's version. Basically, I stole Reggie's version and acted like it was mine. But I confessed to him. I said, I have a version that I'm going to call my own. No, I didn't. I always give him credit for it. And it's a lovely version. It's sort of like you would imagine Cheap Trick or The Who if they covered it. It's just a rocked out version of the same song. And I later went and cut it again on my solo deal. I have a solo deal, Brian Ray, with Wicked Cool Records, and I did a version, and then asked Smokey if he'd come and sing, and he did.
And just while we're talking about that, I want to put up brianray.com for anybody that wants to find out everything about your solo work, your work with the Bayonets, the single with the brand new single that's out right now, Argentina. Fantastic.
By the way, Brian, I'm actually I was actually a big fan of Reggie Knighton's.
Really?
His first album, which well, how do I want to put this? It was really adolescent lyrically, but so was I. So and musically, it was the pop melodies were just all over that album. And then the next one came out, and it was a little bit more rock, but I still liked it. And my friend Jeff and I went to see 10cc one time, and we to our pleasure, we saw that Reggie Knighton band had opened for. Were you on that? This would have been 1978. Were you on that stage?
I played the blonde guy. I was the blonde guy on the left. If you were looking at the stage, wow, stage right there, I was. Yeah.
I remember at the end of the show, we saw you guys were getting into your bus, and we saw Reggie standing there. Both of us yelled like, "Hey, Reggie!" And he looked right through us. And I thought, "Oh no!"
It's overwhelming sometimes out there when I'm sure that he would have loved to talk to you, but anyway, yeah, he's still my buddy.
No, I know. We were just kids, so.
He lives in Westwood, California. I think the world of him, and he's such a talented, interesting songwriter. And I think that I learned a lot from him in terms of songwriting and lyric writing, because even as you call him kind of an adolescent lyricist, he was very brilliant too. He was very into topical stuff.
Yeah.
He had a song about Idi Amin.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that.
Yeah.
VD got to Edie.
Yeah, the VD got to Edie.
That was great.
Woohoo.
Mark, you don't have it. If you don't have well, you should get both Reggie Knighton albums. I don't think the first one ever was on CD. I think the second one is. But the LPs are not that hard to find, fortunately.
Well,
and you would like it. You would.
That's the beautiful thing about this show we do, David. My list keeps getting longer and longer of stuff to look for.
And also these interconnections. I mean, I actually saw you on stage, Brian, like 35 years ago, and here you are now.
That's crazy.
And I made a notation, Brian. You did a track on the Americana Railroad compilation with Carla Olson. You did Whiskey Train, and early on, half a year ago, we had Rocky Burnett on the show, and he was on that album as well with Mystery Train. But when I've talked to him, off air and whatnot, he actually mentioned that track of yours and Carla as one of his favorites on that album, which is kind of a neat connection. And now you're on the show here with us, so it all ties in.
That's so nice. That's so nice to hear. Yeah, that was a real blast. Carla approached me to do a song for that album, and since it was a railroad themed album, all the songs were going to be related to rail travel and railroads. And there's so many of them. There's so many great railroad songs going back to forever. And some of the obvious ones were taken and some of the obvious ones were obvious. So I thought I would hit her with something she'd never heard of before. And she went like, "What? Procol Harum? That is not Americana." And I went, "Right. It's not at all." But, I said, if you just let me write and not write there, steal this song. You let me steal this song. No, if you let me record and produce this record with you and then just come by and sing it, I'd be into doing that. And so she did. And, they gave me a little money for production, and I had a blast. And it did really well. That song got a lot of play.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great track. And that whole Americana compilation is wonderful. A lot of great artists on there, and talking to Rocky about it is kind of cool too. Obviously, his Mystery Train connection, Burnett Brothers, and everything is really neat. But
let's get to the most pertinent question in the minds of most people. How did you wind up getting the greatest job in the world?
Good question. I had been working in France with a couple of premier French artists, one being Johnny Hallyday, who was sort of the Elvis Presley of France, and a woman named Mylène Farmer. And those bands, although there was some overlap in the crew and the production people, the bands were going to need separate auditions, to find the band members. And the only people that got both of those two jobs that toured back to back and forth, Mylène and Johnny, only two musicians that were the same in both bands were Abe Laboriel Jr. and myself, Paul McCartney's drummer. And so Abe and I figured out that we were going to be best friends on the road. Of all the people, we looked around the room and went, "You're the guy." And so on our many, many days off, we would go hang out together and walk around the streets of France and have a blast and find some food and sell our bodies. things like that.
Damn, I wasn't there for that.
We didn't do that.
I missed it.
But yeah, we just got to know each other, and we were just really good pals. And shoot forward about 5 years, about touring with each artist back and forth as we did. Abe was going to sit the next one out because he got a new job recording an album for Paul McCartney, with Paul McCartney. And I went, oh my God, dude. And I was just so excited for him and happy. When I came back to town, I invited him to a birthday party of mine in LA. And he and Suzanne, his wife, came over, and some other friends of mine, Michael DeBar, and a couple other friends. And I was asking Abe about it. I said, so are you guys going to, this is so exciting, are you guys going to play any shows? Or he goes, yeah, they're talking about maybe doing that. But, I said, well, when you put it together, like I knew Rusty had just recorded with them, and I knew Rusty. He was a neighbor of mine. Abe knew me. Abe and Rusty had never played together until this opportunity. And so Abe said, yeah, we'll be looking for, I said, who's going to play bass when Paul plays guitar? And who's going to play bass? Who's going to play bass when he plays piano? Then who's going to play guitar when he plays bass? And he goes, good question. He said, yeah, we're looking for a guitar player who plays bass. And I went, doing. I said, I'd love a shot at that. And he said, oh, that'd be cool. And then I just, said it again, maybe another 100 times. And then I get a call. He said, oh, that's cool, man. I'll put your name forward. I get a call the next day from David Kahn, the producer of Paul's album Driving Rain that they were working on. And David introduced himself and goes, oh my God. I said, I'm a big fan of yours. I've known your work forever. And he goes, well, thank you very much. He said, can you get down here in a half hour to meet with me? Paul needs someone to play one song as a pregame song on the Super Bowl 2002. And I said, well, I can't get there in a half hour, but I can get there in an hour. Would that be okay? And he goes, yeah. Of course, I could have gotten there in a half hour, but I was so absolutely nervous right now that I needed to hyperventilate and breathe and shake my hands out. So I did get down there in an hour, down to Henson and the old A&M Records, and met with him. He handed me a guitar and played a little guitar, just sitting on the couch, just talking, handed me the guitar. Cool, talking about music. Then he hands me a bass, and I start playing bass, and he's just watching my technique or whatever. And not even through an amp, just right there live in the little room, just the two of us. And he goes, well, this has been really fun. I got to get back to work. I have a good feeling about this. I'll put your name forward. He said, but it's not up to me. They have some other people they're looking at, but good luck. And I said, well, thank you. It's about as much as I could ask for. And I go home and I get a phone call the next day from Paul's office saying, hi, we would like you to come to New Orleans to play with Paul McCartney for one song. And,
Wow.
we'll send you a ticket. And I was on a plane the following day, now a Wednesday, met him on a Thursday, rehearsed Friday, and played the show, obviously Sunday. And at the end of the show, we went back to the bar at the hotel, and Paul, we were all just talking story, and Paul's getting ready to leave, and he gives me a hug, and he goes, okay, Brian, thank you. It's great to meet you. Stick with Abe and Rusty. They'll show you the ropes. I'll see you in 5 weeks for rehearsals.
Whoa.
And I went,
excuse me?
Abe, did he just say what I think he said? And he goes, yeah, dude. And I just flew home, started working, just dug in, grew out a beard. I didn't care about anything else. Just worked on music. I got a big stack of CDs and a 12-string, a 6-string, a bass, electric, and a mic stand, and just started going into it.
Wow.
I had 5 weeks to get ready. Still didn't think I was going to be good enough, but I went in and did it, and it worked. I'm still here 21 years later.
And what was the first full concert, the first full show with Paul? And were you just an absolute mental wreck before going into that?
I'm always a mental wreck, but so it was no different than usual. No, I was excited. At this point, we had only rehearsed for 11 days total, believe it or not. 5 days as a band before Paul got there, then 6 days with him. Then we had a few days of production rehearsal. And then we went to Oakland, California, and played in Oakland. And it was April 15th. And no, it was April 1st. And it was my sober birthday.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was my 15th year. That's what it was. That's where 15 comes in. 15th year sober. And that was the night. And it was incredible. And yeah.
Did you make any mistakes that night?
I'm sure I did. But for the purpose of this interview, it was flawless.
It was flawless. Yeah. Well, I wanted to just kind of ask you that question in general. Is there ever a moment on stage, and I would think there would have to be, where you just all of a sudden, like, where am I? I just blanked. I just,
Absolutely. But worse than a mistake is the fear that you're about to make a mistake. And then you go white, all the blood leaves you, and you're just like, oh no, here it comes. And then at the last minute, your mind and body conspire to figure out what you're supposed to do, and you don't make that mistake.
Wow. Yeah.
It's hell.
Yeah. I've had, I mean, this is not nearly on the scale that you deal with, but I've been on stage introducing bands at the festival, and I go through my spiel because I always want the band to know that I like their music. So I describe it, and I'm ready to announce the band, and I can't think of their name. And I'm saying to myself, please, please, please. And then, as you said, so like you're about to make a mistake, and then something in your unconscious mind conspires to bring that name forth. And what a relief that is.
Yeah, for sure. I actually have, I hear you, David. I've got a little bit of a tick, where in a social setting, if I'm with a woman or a man, whatever, and introductions are about to happen, I will space on everybody's name all at the same time and just be a complete knucklehead. And then I turn white and I feel terrible and I'm embarrassed. And then I just always hope that someone's going to say, hi, I'm Dorothy.
Yeah.
And then look at me like, what the fuck is that? And I just kind of hope for the best.
I'm terrible with names. And I used to tell my now ex-wife that if we're going someplace, there'd be people around. If I give you this look, which is kind of like, that means I have no clue who, I don't remember the name, and you need to step in and do exactly what you said there. Yes. And without fail, she always went, and put me in such a, that's probably why she's my ex-wife now. But and I feel like, then we get home and I'd be like, didn't we discuss this? Didn't we? What?
That's not very nice.
It's not.
No.
It's speaking of McCartney, Michael McCartney, a wonderful DJ out of Maui. It just checked in and said, hello, Brian, 2 decades in the band. Can you believe that?
I cannot. Hi, Michael, my buddy. Yeah. I've gone and done his show live and in person in Maui a couple of times. Yeah, he's my buddy.
He's a great guy. Been a big supporter of a lot of great music, and the music that you and I kind of have a little connection to via the Underground Garage with Little Steven, and you're on Wicked Cool, and you've had coolest songs of the week and in the world. And matter of fact, in 2017 with what was the track, Like She Does, that was coolest song of the year.
Yeah,
I think you were five positions higher than artist on my label, which was the Dolmans with Andy Chernoff and Forever My Baby.
Nice.
That came in 5th that year. So we've been going back and forth with a lot of Pop Detective Records artists and the Bayonets over the years. So, but always wonderful when the Bayonets do great on the Underground Garage, because you put some great stuff out.
I definitely want to talk about. I want to talk about the Bayonets and what's coming up, but I feel compelled to ask you about this. When I first saw you on at that Super Bowl performance, my friends and I were big fans of Jason Faulkner. You may know him at this point. I don't know. I
do, yeah.
But a lot of us are saying, is that Jason on stage? Wow. Oh, my God. What a gig he just got.
Yeah, I can see where people would get that idea.
Have you and Jason talked about that? Have you been in the same room?
We've been in the same room together. Yeah. The last time I saw him was at Kings Road Cafe for a brief minute, just said hello and stuff. Yeah. Great, very talented guy out there with St. Vincent now.
Mm-hmm.
No,
sometimes with Beck.
Jason's great. He's been a guest on our show. I've known him for forever, and he's one of the greatest songwriters. But I just remember how uncanny that was when I found out, no, it's not Jason, it's Brian Ray.
Yeah. Guys, I need to attend to something for a quick second, so just
talk
yourselves, and I'll be right back.
You got it.
No worries at all.
Well, that's happened to me enough times, so it's okay.
You didn't have to let the pool guy.
Yeah, where's the pool guy? I have to see a man about a horse.
Well, for everybody checking in, and we thank you for sticking around as we started a little late tonight. Brian was there's a little mix up with emails and things, but he was nice enough to join us here, which is wonderful. And
it's been so much fun.
Yeah, he just stepped away for a minute. He'll be back. Great to see Larry Kennedy from the Jelly Bricks on here. Michael McCartney, and actually Michael was calling me a couple times during the show, but I couldn't answer the phone because we're live on air here. So that's why he checked back in that way. But great to see you, Michael.
You too, Michael. I'd love to be back on your show. I always had fun, and I'll never forget when you took Rena and me to tour Maui. That was a wonderful time.
I'd not only love to
21 years ago. I can't believe it.
I'd not only love to be on the show, I would love to be in Maui right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm just saying.
No kidding. This has been, for those of you who live in California, or even for those who don't, this has probably been the coldest winter that I can remember. And I understand that people from back east, they don't really care because but there have actually been a few days this winter where it's been warmer back east than it in the greater New York area than it has out here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's been crazy.
So Brian, let's talk about the Bayonets. Will this be your second album coming up?
Well, this is what we just released was a single for Wicked Cool Records.
Yes.
Bayonets was self-released, and then we got together with a label out of New York called Gem Records.
We love Gem Records, Brian.
Yeah,
I've done several showcases at my festival for them. Marty Scott.
Yeah, Marty.
We had him on our show. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were on Gem for a 5-year licensing thing, and that just reverted back to us. And so I thought to myself, first I came to little Steven and said, hey, if Oliver and I were to write more music, would you be interested in doing a singles deal with the Bayonets? And they said, absolutely. So then I went to Oliver and said, hey, I've just scored us a little singles deal. Would you feel like doing some writing? And he said, yeah. So we did that. Now I've been doing solo singles for 5 years, 6 years now on Wicked Cool,
right?
As just myself, Brian Ray. And now I'm getting ready to do a best of LP.
Oh, nice.
That'll probably come up next year. And I'm finishing the songs for that right now. And that'll include sort of a bunch of my solo stuff, a bunch of A-sides, and then 4 songs that will not have been released before. Yeah, some brand new ones. So that'll give people something to look forward to. And the Bayonets, we just had a coolest song in the world with Argentina, as you were saying, and super blessed about that. And you never know. We'll probably do some more here and there. I mean, I'm busy. Oliver's busy, but it's a fun thing and we enjoy it.
Sorry, Mark.
Little taste.
Tell everyone who Oliver is, because they may
not
know. But he's got a pretty famous connection also.
Oliver is another songwriting partner of mine who I've worked with for years, off and on, in various projects. And, after helping me with my two previous solo albums, Mondo Magneto and This Way Up, he wrote a handful of songs on those two albums. And I came to him and said, "Hey, let's do another couple of songs together." And he said, "Well, actually, let's just do a band. I'd rather do a band." And I went, "Okay." And so then it came about, well, what is this band? What makes it different? Well, Oliver's background, he's the son of Jerry Lieber of Lieber and Stoller. Well, his dad wrote Jailhouse Rock, Under the Boardwalk, Yakety Yak, Charlie Brown, and so many other great songs. Hound Dog. He kind of absconded with Hound Dog, so let's be clear about that. But anyway, his dad is, basically Lieber and Stoller built the foundation that rock and roll was built on. And so Oliver has that sort of lyric talent in him that was his dad's real strength in Lieber and Stoller, where Mike's was more of melody and the chords. And it was a great duo. And much the same, the exchange between Oliver and I is similar. Like, I'll come in with a song pretty much formed, and then we'll bang out the lyrics together. And we inevitably have a lot of laughs. And there's been a few times where he brings in the song. So, and that's been really great too. So, yeah.
Any plans to do some shows this year? Hint, hint.
Nothing. We did choose to bring in a female, co-lead singer, Lucrecia Lopez Sanz. The only problem is I chose her because I met her out on tour and thought that she was so cool and professional and just talented and eager and all that stuff. The problem being she was from Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little hard to just throw together some gigs.
Right.
Yeah.
Will there be an album?
What's that?
Will there be an album? I thought I'd read that there was, but I guess I never.
Well, we've done one album as the Bayonets.
Right.
That was on Gem Records, and then we self-released one. Then we did one on Gem where we added 2 more songs to our album, and then we did a Christmas single. We just did this new single. And there's some talk about the possibility of doing a best of Bayonets record where we would add some new material to come up with a reason to buy a best of Bayonet. So you never know. We'll keep it on the back burner.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So what's your year gonna be filled with?
Well, like I said, I'm just finishing up my 4 songs to complete a best of Brian Ray album. And so that keeps me really busy, exciting stuff. I'm loving these songs. I'm really enjoying the process. And so I'll turn those in, and then the label and I will think of which of the other songs I've already released would be on that album. And then we'll release an LP probably in 2024.
And the new single is Argentina. What's the significance? Where'd that song come from?
Lucrecia, right?
Lucrecia's from Argentina, and I first met her in Argentina. And Oliver and I were writing the song, and we got to the chorus. We played in Argentina. Oliver came down to Argentina when I was on a break from a Paul tour, met him there, got Lucrecia's little local band together. So Oliver, Lucrecia, and I got together as the Bayonets, with Lucretia's band Nube Nueve, which is Cloud Nine. And we did a series of shows in Argentina and Brazil. So I think we had a little history there, and we just liked the way the words sounded and sang in the context of this song. You know, it has sort of almost a East LA kind of vibe to it. You know, like.
Is that like a little Farfisa or something in the background?
Yeah, there's a Vox Continental organ.
Vox Continental?
It sure is, yeah.
Can you guys pick this up here a second there?
Yeah.
I'm not hearing that, Mark.
Mark, you're going to have to share with the class.
Yeah.
He's got headphone-itis. Now he's talking loudly with headphones on.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was really good. Such a great song. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad
it's a lot of fun, Brian. It really is.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Really well done.
The B side of that is a song that we had left over from our previous songwriting. During the Crash Boom Bang sessions, we wrote a song that actually featured upright bass by Larry Taylor from Canned Heat.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
The Mole, who has left this this planet, left this mortal coil. But he's on it, and we never finished the song. And I came to Oliver and I said, "Hey, B-side, what if we finish that track we have laying around?" He goes, "What track?" And I said, "Well, we did this song about 6 years ago." And he goes, "Oh, let me look for it. What was it called?" And I said, "It was called The Clicker. And it was about a husband and wife fighting over the remote control." And I said, "No wonder we never finished it." And I said, "Well, let's get that song and rewrite it with a new melody and a new lyric and work on that track a little bit." And that's called The Post-Apocalypso. And it's a fun B-side too.
That's very much fun. Yeah.
Calypso vibe.
So, Brian, what was your favorite McCartney album before you started playing with him? And now that you've played a lot of tracks from from the subsequent albums, has that favorite album changed into one of those, or is it still what it was?
I mean, I'm a big fan of all of his work, but his earliest stuff like Ram and the McCartney one, the Cherries album, and Rose Speedway, and I just so many of those albums and stuff that stuff all really stuck with me a great deal, and obviously all the Beatles stuff. I was raised on that, and it's in my bloodstream. It's actually, it's all there, for all of us. But I mean, I've been a big fan of it. Then later I loved Flaming Pie. I thought that was amazing.
Oh, that is.
And then all the albums that we've been working on together have been amazing too. A real joy to work on, from all the way back from live albums we've done, but Memory Almost Full and Chaos and Creation and all of it.
Such a canon, such a body of work. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing the things. I mean, obviously when he's getting ready to go out on tour and you're discussing what's going to be in the set list, he'll throw in things that maybe he hasn't played in quite a while. But just, do you have to be totally prepared for anything, or is it pretty scripted?
You have to be prepared for anything, because it used to be that he would, at the last minute, send us out some songs to learn that he wants to add. And we would sometimes suggest stuff as well. More recently, he likes to just come in and tell us on the spot, and we all learn them together. Yeah.
So you see this question here? This is great.
Back to the Egg. Yeah.
Could you do just anyone from Back to the Egg?
That's so nice. Well, you never know. The thing is that it's up to Paul. What it is that he has relationships with all of his songs, just like any songwriter does. And some of them resonate for him now more than others. So he'll be more likely to sing a song that the words have a place in his heart now. Like, there's all sorts of songs that I would love to do that he's not feeling them lyrically, and he just lets us know it's not something not something that he wants to do. If he doesn't feel the song, he's probably not going to do it.
Michael McCartney said, share the story about attempting to add Backseat of My Car from Ram to the concert set list by performing it for Paul with the band and how it didn't make the cut.
Well, I mean, thanks, Michael. We'd all been lobbying for that one because it's such a great song, Backseat of My Car. And it's quite a learn up, because I think there's like 15 different tempos in the song and different movements. Yeah. And it's when we got to the first sort of refrain that the background vocals on the record sing sort of like this kind of almost a chanting, and Rusty and I, for the life of us, couldn't figure out what the hell he was singing. And because I don't think he knows what he was singing. It was just something he did, and then he doubled whatever he did. But anyway, Rusty and I are trying to figure it out, and we did our best, and we brought it to rehearsal, and we started doing it. Paul just started laughing because I think it occurred to him like, oh, right, there's that part. But anyway, he gave it a good go, and what can you say? It wasn't because of that background part. It was because for whatever reason, it just didn't land for him. It didn't make him go, yeah, that's a good one. And that happens all the time. We'll try a song again after 5 years of trying it last time, and he'll say, yeah, still don't love doing it. And that's that. That's all there is to it. The fans can want something a lot, but Paul's got to want to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is a tour coming up?
I am never the one to announce things, and there are no plans right now. But if there were plans, I would tell you there's no plans now.
Okay. I followed.
You would have to stay tuned. You would have to do. But no, there are seriously no plans right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Iconic. One question I wanted to ask you, Brian. Iconic songs from early on in the Beatles creation. She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand. Obviously, Ed Sullivan performances that were huge. Paul doesn't do those in concert, does he?
No, you're right. And that's funny you would mention those two, because those two specifically, I just texted to the other guys and said, can you imagine how insane people would go if we toured again, if we opened with either one of those songs?
Right. Yeah.
Can you imagine what would happen? And, they both went, it's bonkers. And, well, I think for Paul, perhaps he's more likely to do, I'm just guessing here, more likely to do the songs that he brought into the room that day they wrote songs, where he's the more featured lead singer. And if you listen to I Want to Hold Your Hand, they're both doubling the whole song.
Right.
It wasn't tracked by John. In other words, it wasn't doubled by John. It's Paul and John singing the lead vocal. So one time I remember mentioning it to him, and I said, you're singing lead too on that song. And I said, and if you listen to the Ed Sullivan performance, they had you way out in front.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's you. And good thing they did, because otherwise, there would have been no vocal, because they barely had John on for that one for some dumb reason. Yeah. And anyway, so that's the reason is Paul favors the songs that he brought into the room.
Well,
She Loves You always seemed to be one of his. I mean, I always associate Paul with that song. I hear his vocal more up front in that song. So I'm surprised he doesn't feel that way.
I'll tell him who said that. Maybe that will seal the deal.
I'll tell you one thing. If I was in the audience and you open and I heard that drum fill, it would be one of those moments where it's like, no way. Like your brain wouldn't, by the time you realized it was happening, your brain wouldn't have time to process what you just heard.
People would be just yelling and crying and laughing all at the same time.
Maybe if you started a concert off like that, maybe it would be too much of a high, and everybody would just like.
No, I like the idea. Don't ruin it. Keep that in your head. Talk to Paul. Say we think it's his song, and we want to hear it.
Yeah. I mentioned it to Wicks, and he goes, I'll be in the bathroom when you bring it up.
Oh, it's awesome though. But I've always wondered why those two particular very, very iconic songs were never featured with his concerts. And different people have had different hypotheses as to why. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
interesting.
Brian, we don't want to keep you any longer. We've had a great time
Yeah.
with you.
Thanks so much.
Wonderful.
And
Wonderful.
you had wonderful stories, and you've been very engaging, and we really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, man. Thank you guys for having me.
And everything Brian Ray Bayonets wise, brianray.com. Check it out. Argentina is the new single, coolest song in the world on Little Steven's Underground Garage. And best wishes with everything in the future,
Yes.
Brian. Thank you so much for being on Material Issues. And I'm a fan of everything you do, and keep doing it.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks
And
so
I hope
much,
to see.
Mark. Thank
I
you,
hope to
David.
see you. I hope to see you soon. I live in Reseda, so
All
one day.
right. That sounds good. Well, I'll probably run into you at Trader Joe's or something like that.
Probably. Yeah.
See you guys around.
Have a great night. Be
Take
safe.
care, Brian.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it, David. Brian Ray.
Another wonderful guest. Yeah, we've been fortunate. Thank you, Andy. We have had some really great guests over the last few weeks. And, I didn't have any doubt that Brian would be one of them because, with the limited interaction I'd had with him, and as you mentioned, with other interviews that we've seen, we knew he was going to be spot on. And, thankfully he was first. And, one of the things I got to think that a lot of our guests appreciate the fact that we do ask some questions right out of left field.
Yeah.
And I mean, partially because we're geeks, and also because we're not constrained by, people in our ear saying, "No, get off of that."
Yeah.
We only have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Yeah.
We only have 10 seconds. We got. Yeah, Brian is certainly wonderful. We got, we move on to the important stuff, blah blah, and all that. And we don't have that.
Yeah.
We'll talk as long as the guest wants to, and we'll ask whatever the hell we want. So
and he's had a very long, incredible career. When you really get into everybody he's played with and continues to play with, and yet he's done wonderful solo material with the Bayonets. It's just a really, really talented person who puts out great music, and I hope everybody checks out the new single Argentina, which is really really fantastic.
Definitely check it out. It's great when good things happen to really good people.
It sure is.
I mean, you think about the magnitude of a gig like that.
I can't think about it.
Guitar player, it's mind blowing, and it just happened so much out of happenstance. And as we find out week after week, so many things like this happen to artists because, and it's not like it's not always a who like put in a good word. I mean, it turns out to be a who but you don't know that you know that.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, just turns out that my next door neighbor was da da da.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's really something. But I'm glad it happened for him. He's really great, and
I had to ask him about just like being on stage and just all of a sudden like losing your head as to where you're at, because even like at a very much small level, when I'm at work at the restaurant every once in a while and I'm singing a love song, I'll get a guitar out and I'm doing anniversaries or something and I'm playing and all of a sudden I will just lose my head. I don't know where I'm going next with the chords and the lyrics, and I don't want to disappoint anybody, and then it snaps back in, and muscle memory.
It's amazing. I remember being on the Cavern stage, on the front stage. I don't remember the band, but I'm going through my spiel, and I always look at the schedule before I go up. So it's not, I'm aware of who I'm supposed to introduce. And so I'm going through my spiel, and I'm getting to the point where I'm going to say, would you please give a huge welcome to whomever? And as I'm getting to that point, I realize I don't remember who this is. Yeah. I have no idea. And it's not like I recognized them either. It was probably a band who'd never played before. I didn't know what they looked like, so I couldn't just look back. Oh, okay. And I'm just like, part of my mind, my mind is compartmentalizing. And one of the compartments is saying, please Please let it come back. I don't want to have to. Oh my God, how embarrassing would
And
that be? And then
here they are.
Then it suddenly does. Yeah.
I forgot to ask him whether Paul was in Klaatu. I meant to get that
Oh,
in.
that is something people would definitely want to know. So let's see what we have coming up.
What do we got coming up, David?
Right now we have 2 guests coming up, and not in successive weeks, which opens up the possibility of you and I doing 1 or 2 ourselves. But next week yeah, right. Now John, that hasn't happened actually. I say John because I know that was John.
It's got to be him, yeah.
Usually by the end, I'm fully aware of who's just played. But anyway, next week, speaking out of left field, next week we have a guest that's certainly out of, and occasionally they don't. But usually the ones who need no introduction are ones who I remember. Yeah, it's not like I've ever had, it's not like I've had someone like McCartney, not like I ever had anyway, but it's not like I wouldn't remember who that was. But anyhow, next week we have a very unusual, in the best possible way, guest. We have a real live, honest to goodness, professional escort. And her name is Amy Taylor. And yes, when I say escort, that's exactly what I mean. And one of the reasons there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to invite her. One is because I think she's a really remarkable woman. She's brilliant. She's absolutely stunning. And she does a lot of stuff outside of her profession. But the other reason was I want to try and help eradicate some of the myths about escorts and how, it's all about sex, because it really isn't. It's about companionship. And you have lots of very rich men paying a lot of money to spend time with her. And I mean, if it was only about sex, I mean, they could get it. They have enough money to get it from wherever they wanted, probably, and wouldn't have to spend as much time. So we know it's way more about that. And we know there's all kinds of innuendo, and it's tough for her. When people find out what she does, sometimes there's snickers and sometimes there's, people are aghast, but honestly, that shouldn't be the case. So we want to eradicate all that and find out who the woman really is and what she does. And it's incredibly fascinating.
It's going to be a really neat show. Yeah, it's going to be a neat show. We hope something different. Very different.
Something different. And I hope people tune in. And I hope we all learn a lot. And I think we will from Ms. Taylor. So Amy Taylor next week on material issues. Then right now we have a couple of weeks that aren't full after that. And
do a little Stump the Bash, probably. A little Stump
I
the
hope
Bash.
So. I missed that.
Yeah.
And if Jackie Fox wants to come back on and do another trivia game, I don't mind losing to her as many times as I have to, because I know she's better at it than I am anyway.
That'd be fun, though. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be like me bowling against Marshall Holman or something. I mean, I don't expect to win, but if I do, hey.
But
great.
it's just fun losing to him. Yeah.
Hell, it would be. If Marshall, if you're listening, we'll do a 10-game series. Maybe I can win one of them. Anyway. So tell us about our next guest that we have scheduled. And
what do we get? It's April 12th. April 12th. Iconic dance club singles in the early 80s. I can remember hearing the first lick of the first real hit they had. But Deborah Ayal, the lead singer of Romeo Void, is going to be our guest. And really looking forward to it, because their first dance hit, Never Say Never, has stuck with me forever. And then they followed that up with a top 20 hit with A Girl in Trouble as a temporary thing.
That's an amazing video along with it. I'll never forget seeing that on MTV.
They were on MTV's Bands Reunited program. You might have seen them that. But Deborah also has had a wonderful solo album out. I've got the vinyl here. It's fantastic. So she's had a very interesting career. And of course, there's been some stigma when you talk about stigmas with her and her career being a larger woman in a time when record labels came to see them and walked out before she even sang a note because they didn't like what she looked like, which is an absolute shame. But we're going to talk to her about her wonderful career and what she's doing now. It's going to be great. Deborah Ayal of Romeo Void, April 12th. And then after that, April 19th will actually be our 100th episode.
Oh, is that on the 19th?
I believe it's the 19th, yeah.
If it is, I will be still home. I'm not going to Chicago until the 21st. So I think
the 12th is the 99th episode. Yeah.
Okay, then that makes it even better. It makes it easier.
So we're kicking around some ideas for our 100th episode. We don't have a guest for it. We may not go with a guest. We may just do a retrospective on the first 99.
I kind of like that idea, Mark. I like the idea of the retrospective.
And I'm still blown away that we just did episode number 94. So
I know, and of course in May, well, actually this will be May 31st. Yes, May 31st, which will be Wednesday. We'll be at the Cavern Club, and we'll definitely do, as long as their Wi-Fi is as good as it was last year, we'll definitely do another live from the Cavern Material Issues. If John Borak wants to join you, Mark, I mean, we could do what we did last year, have you and John speak for a bit, and then we get me involved, and we interview some of the bands who are playing, and we take a nice little walk around the Cavern stage and show everybody what.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That was a lot of fun last year.
Doing that was kind of cool. So
let's kind of put that in the diary.
So we got some great things coming up, and we always have irons in the fire. Yeah, we got more. So I'm just posting all these little links along here. Join the channel here on Facebook or subscribe over on YouTube. You can watch all the archives. Now this is good. This one will go up tonight. 94 episodes of Material Issues, all available out there. And what a great show tonight, David. Fantastic really with Brian Ray. Just a wonderful show, and I look forward to next week with Amy Taylor.
Absolutely. Until then, everyone, have a great rest of your week and weekend. And we definitely hope to see you next week in this, as many succeeding weeks as possible. So everyone, take care.
Have a great